Hi students, welcome to VerandaRace, and in today's practice session we are going to do a lot of questions. We shall practice a lot of questions. So let us not waste time. Sorry for there were some technical issues. That's why we are starting the class late today. Not a problem. We'll discuss the questions ahead and let us move ahead. Okay. Today's practice session for a various variety of questions. So the first question on the screen is, a strategic communication plan can not only help the government increase vaccination reach and uptake despite fight misinformation. This is the question for you. A strategic communication plan can not only help the government increase vaccination reach and uptake despite fight misinformation. So you can see over here, not only is there, not only. So not only is followed by but also and not followed by despite. So the error is in part D, which should be but also. So the question becomes, answer becomes, a strategic communication plan can not only help the government increase vaccine reach and uptake, but also fight misinformation. So there are two things. Not only help the government increase vaccine reach and uptake, but also fight misinformation. Both the things are to be done over here. So the answer is D portion, which has an error. Despite should be replaced by but also. Clear? Okay. Communication can play a major role in building trust among people. Communication can play a major role in building trust among people by strategizing powerful yet compelling ways to deliver information regarding vaccination. We can see the question part wise. Communication can play a major role in no error in that, building trust among people by strategizing powerful, no error, yet compelling ways to deliver information regarding vaccination. Okay, can play a major role in building trust among people and strategies powerful yet ways to deliver. Okay, fine. The error is in, I think, in part C. Yet should be replaced by and. I'll tell you why. Because yet shows contradiction. So strategizing powerful and compelling ways to deliver. Because both are similar. Powerful and compelling are similar. Yet shows a contradiction, conflict. So here it should be and not yet. It's a difficult question, I know. C part has an error. Yet should be replaced by and, because powerful and compelling are similar words. And connects similar words, which are both showing the positive side, powerful and compelling. So yet should be replaced by and. It's a difficult question, I accept that. But yet should be replaced by and. Yet is something which shows contradiction. He is happy yet a bit melancholic, this way. Okay. So error is in part C. So we'll mark the error. Fine. Moving ahead. Okay students, next question. Despite of the COVID pandemic dealing a sledgehammer blow, the center is still confident of making India a 5 trillion economy by 2025. Despite of the COVID pandemic dealing a sledgehammer blow, the center is still confident of making India a 5 trillion economy. Okay students, well, the error is in part A. Despite should not be followed by of. Despite should not be followed by of. So the answer is in part A. Error is in part A. The answer is, despite the COVID pandemic dealing a sledgehammer blow, the center is still confident of making India a 5 trillion economy. Clear? Despite is not followed by of. In spite is followed by of. Well, currently India is ranked 131 out of 189 nations on the Human Development Index scale, which is not something to be proud of for a country that lays great emphasis in social equity and inclusion. Okay. Let us read it again. Currently, India is ranked 131 out of 189 nations on the Human Development Index scale, which is not something to be proud of for a country that lays great emphasis on. Emphasis is followed by on, not in. So when you lay emphasis on something, you put a stress on that thing. So lay emphasis on social equity and inclusion. Clear? Next question. As a result of various health insurance coverage schemes, as a result of various health insurance coverage schemes introduced by states, and the number of people lifted above BPL life expectancy increased by 10.7 years from 1990 to 2015, but had since risen marginally by 0.9 years. The entire sentence is written in present tense. As a result of various health insurance coverage schemes introduced by states and the number of people lifted above BPL life expectancy increased by 10.57%. All is in past tense from 1990 to 2015, but since risen marginally by 0.9 years. So this should be has, because the latter part of the sentence shows that from 1990 from 1990 to 2015, but has since risen marginally by 0.9 years. So this particular situation, which is from here to here, shows the increment in the life expectancy. Life expectancy has increased by 10.7 years from 1990 to 2015, but has since risen marginally by 0.9 years. So what has happened is, in the sentence if you see, as a result of various health insurance coverage schemes. So health insurance coverage schemes have surged, introduced by states, and the number of people lifted above below poverty line life expectancy increased by 10.7 years from 1990 to 2015, but it has since risen marginally by 0.9 years. So the difference between earlier life expectancy and the current life expectancy is only 0.9 years. The marginal difference is only 0.9 years. So it should be it has, because it shows the change from that time to this time. For example, I'll give you an example. If I say initially in 1996 the population was 120 crores, but in 2021 it is 140 crores. So it has risen. It has risen by 20 crores, I would say. So this way we can choose it to be the error in part D, which is it has risen. It has since risen marginally by 0.9 years. It has since risen. So here it should be it. Okay. Next question. Okay. So it is spelling error. The Seattle-based Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the most influential private foundation in the world with an endowment worth nearly 50 billion. It has focused on global health and development and US education issues since incorporating in 2000. So there are four parts, there are four words that have been highlighted: incorporating, development, endowment, and development, endowment, and influential. So which part has an error? Which word is wrongly spelled? So it is endowment. The correct spelling should be endowment. E-N-D-O-W-M-E-N-T. Endowment. Endowment. This is the correct spelling. Endowment. What's the meaning of endowment? Endowment is like a grant or a fund that has been granted to the company or an NGO. Endowment is fund basically that has been granted to someone. We can also say endowment is grant. Okay. Apple Incorporate cornered nearly a quarter of the global smartphones market in the fourth quarter, making it the world's biggest seller, while shipments for Huawei plunged as US sanctions against it took effect. Okay, there are four words like cornered, quarter, shipments, and plunge. The spelling of plunge is wrong. It should be plunge. P-L-U-N-G-E-D. Plunge. The correct spelling is plunge. Okay. The next sentence is, we have fillers. Fillers question are there. BJP juggernaut dash halted, but it is still a force with no viable alternative in sight yet. Okay. BJP juggernaut dash halted, but it is still a force with no viable alternative in sight. Okay, juggernaut, what is the meaning of juggernaut? The sentence needs to be understood first. Juggernaut means the movement or the performance, we can say like that. So BJP juggernaut is, yet this shows that the sentence is in present tense. So we have to use a present tense modal. So may have been is the best answer we have. This should be the correct answer. The BJP juggernaut may have been halted, but it is still a force with no viable alternative in sight. Fine. This is the correct answer. A $5 trillion economy will not dash human development. Kerala's achievements must be emulated. Okay, we can see over here will is there, will. So with will we use a V1. V1 means a verb, a plural verb of the present tense. So we have improve over here. Have significantly improved. Will cannot be used with have, has or improves. Will improves cannot be there. We cannot say will not have significantly improved. Will not has significantly improved. Correct answer is A, which is a $5 trillion economy will not significantly improve human development. Kerala's achievements must be emulated. Okay, so this is the answer. Because with will we use V1. We have the only one option over here which can be used. Okay. A concerted effort by Lagarde states to emulate Kerala and leverage the health and insurance educational policy of the center, backed by sustained measurement of HDI, Human Development Index outcomes, is dash to hasten India's entry into the high Human Development Club of Nations. Okay, what's the meaning of the sentence? A concerted effort by Lagarde states, Lagarde means those who are backward, states to emulate Kerala and leverage means use the health and educational policies of the center, backed by sustained measurement of HDI outcomes, is required to hasten India's entry into the high Human Development Club of the Nations. Okay, so here it should be required. So required means called for. Call for means required, because here the blank says that something is required, something is must be necessitated, is essential. So called for means required. So that will be the answer. Dispensable is like which cannot be dispensed with. Very important. Very important. So is dispensable to hasten. Is called for to hasten. Called for is required. Secondary, avertible, gratuitous. Okay, avertible means that can be neglected, averted, neglected, or can be failed. This is something which means gratuitous means something that should be, that will come as a gratuity, that will come as a profit at the end of the program or something like that. So this is related to gratuity that comes at the last, and avertible means that can be averted, that can be negated, can be revoked, can be abrogated. Secondly, you know the meaning of called for means required. Dispensable means that cannot be dispensed with. Very important. Okay. The scheme beneficiaries will be selected through a bidding process, with the applicants proposed to be evaluated based on the dash of integration capacity. Okay. The scheme beneficiaries will be selected through a bidding process with the applicants proposed to be evaluated based on the the evaluation will be based on what? The dash of integration capacity. So based on the integration and capacity, so to what extent they are integrated and they have the capacity of doing capacious. Okay, in that case its extent should be the answer, because evaluation will be based on the extent of their integration capacity. Major, eminent, enhancement. Okay, major is adjective, eminent is like adjective, enhancement is like noun, element is noun. So we have to reject adjectives over here. We have to select nouns, and extent is the best noun over here. We cannot use an adjective over here. Here is required is on the dash of. On the dash of means on the extent of their integration capacity. So the extent is the best answer. Adjectives have to be neglected. Enhancement, element and extent were correct to some extent, but extent is the best answer. Okay. The supply dash are hitting a wide array of industries, with tech firms and automakers alike flagging production cuts and lost revenue from the fallout. Okay. The supply dash are hitting a wide array of industries. Okay, so what hitting means? Something bad, right? If something bad is happening, definitely supply should be low. So supply element, supply fundamental, seminal. Constraints is the best answer. Constraints means reduction in supply. Reduction in supply. So here it should be the supply constraints. Very simple question it is. Constraints. Constraints means the reduction in supply. Because it's written over here, are hitting a wide array of industries. Something that hits an industry or industry is definitely a bad thing, a negative word, so it should be constraints. Okay. So we have a rearrangement over here, rearrangement of sentence. So we have to rearrange it. Okay. The response can be turned off and by on the cells that surround neurons in the brain, according to a new study. The response, this is written as the response, which cannot be the first sentence, because any sentence that starts with the or this or these or those or also, these are always the second or third sentences, right? Additionally cannot be the first sentence. Generally it is a last sentence or the second last sentence. Neuroplasticity is the ability of neurons to change their structure and function in response to experiences. This is the first sentence, 100%. Because it shows, it introduces a new idea. So C is the first sentence. Flexibility as these, this cannot be the first sentence. For example, cannot be the first sentence. The human brain is made up of billions of neurons that form complex connection with one another. F can be a first sentence, but let us consider C or F as the first sentences. Either C is the first sentence or F is the first sentence. Okay. Neuroplasticity is the ability of neurons to change their structure and function in response to experiences. Okay, then A comes, the response can be turned off and on by the cells that surround neurons in the brain, according to a new study. So I think A is the second sentence. Very easy it becomes, because in C we are talking about the response, and the response has been explained, can be turned off and on by the cells that surround the neurons in the brain, according to a new study. Now what has been described about the brain, in the brain, has been written over here. The human brain is made up of billions of neurons that form complex connection with one another. So cells and neurons have been described over here. So here F describes the neurons and the brain. CAF. F, possibility of being the first sentence is gone. Now flexibility at these connections. What does F say? The human brain is made up of billions of neurons that form complex connections. So D will be the next sentence. Flexibility at these connections is a major driver of learning and memory, but things can go wrong if it isn't tightly regulated. So I think F should be the next sentence. After F, what should come? D should come. Flexibility at these connections is a major driver. So CFD. Now let us see what is connecting. Flexibility at these connections is a major driver of learning and memory, but things can go wrong if it isn't tightly regulated. For example, in people, too much plasticity at the wrong time is linked to brain disorders such as epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease. So this is in D it is mentioned, but things can go wrong, and here it has gone wrong. So E is the next sentence. So E, and obviously B will be the last sentence. So let us read the entire rearrangement once so that we can understand the coherence. Neuroplasticity is the ability of neurons to change their structure and function in response to experiences. The response can be turned off and on by the cells that surround neurons in the brain, according to a new study. The human brain is made up of billions of neurons that form complex connections with one another. Flexibility at these connections is major driver of learning and memory, but things can go wrong if it isn't tightly regulated. For example, in people, too much plasticity at wrong time is linked to the brain disorders such as epilepsy and Alzheimer's disease. Additionally, reduced levels of the two neuroplasticity controlling proteins we identified are linked to increased susceptibility to autism and schizophrenia. So this is the rearrangement CAF-DEB. This is the rearrangement CAF-DEB. Okay, students? Moving ahead. We have 3 more questions in rearrangement. Health insurance increased by 54%. This is rearrangement, okay. So health insurance increased by 54% and seen the proportion of house. Okay, so this is jumbled up. This is jumbled up. So we have to arrange. So how can we identify? We can see over here seen is written, seen. And we have over here, have. Okay. States that have implemented the Ayushman Bharat scheme launched in 2018 have seen the proportion of households. So, CA is one order, CB. CB. Because in C it's written, states that have implemented the Ayushman Bharat scheme launched in 2018 have seen the proportion of households with. So have seen is the structure which helps us have seen. So CB is a pair. So in options we have 2 CBs, this and this. These two are eliminated. So CBAD or DACB. Let's check. What is D? Infant mortality rates declined by 20%, indicating an increase in life expectancy. So I think this is incorrect. This is correct. Let us rearrange and find the meaning in that. States that have implemented the Ayushman Bharat scheme launched in 2018 have seen the proportion of households with health insurance increase by 54% and infant mortality rates declined by 20%, indicating increasing life expectancy. So I think the correct answer is CBAD. Fine. Okay, students. Moving ahead to the next question. Exhort the rural population to 15 plus years of formal education to augment your expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. MYS, school dropouts with appropriate slogans to the government should champion the cause. Okay. To augment the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. Augment means what? Increase. Augment means increase. To augment the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling, the government should champion the cause of reintegrating the over 60 million. So this should be followed by D. So I think BD is the correct option. BD. Let's check which has BD as an option. BDCA. BDCA. Let's check. To augment means to increase the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. The government should champion the cause of reintegrating over 60 million. C. 60 million school dropouts with appropriate slogans to exhort the rural population to 15 plus years of formal education. Okay. So BDCA is the correct answer. So how did we identify this? To augment the expected years of schooling, EYS and mean years of to increase the expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling, the government should champion the cause of reintegrating the over 60 million and school dropouts with appropriate slogans to. Now the last one is A, exhort the rural population to 15 plus years of formal education. So exhort means what? Exhort means request. Exhort means request. Moving ahead. suffered material injury due to subsidization of fiber boards by the government of these countries are, and in its final findings on the anti-subsidy investigation concerning imports on fiber boards from these countries, the DTGR has concluded that the domestic industry had that the subsidy margins of each of the countries is above the de minimis and significant. Okay. Okay, we can see the hint over here. It's written had and suffered. So CA is a pair. CA is a pair. Let's read this. In its final findings on the anti-subsidy investigation concerning imports of fireboards, so I think A should be paired with C. AC. 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 Let's check. In its final findings on the anti-subsidy. So I think B is the first sentence because it's an introductory sentence. In its final findings on the anti-subsidy investigation concerning imports of fiber boards from these countries. So it cannot be first sentence. Okay. CA is going well. The DGTR has concluded that the domestic industry had suffered material injury due to subsidization of fiber boards by the governments of these countries, and that the subsidy margins, so CAD, so B is the first sentence. Okay, so it automatically talks about the first sentence. So let us check. BCAD. The DGTR has concluded that the domestic injury had, in its final findings on the anti-subsidy investigation concerning imports on fiber boards from these countries, B, the DGTR has concluded that the domestic industry had suffered material injury due to subsidization of fiber boards by the governments of these countries, and that the subsidy margins of each of these countries is above the de minimis and the significant. BCAD is the correct answer. Okay, students. So now let us end the session. I hope you had a wonderful time, and we will join tomorrow at the same time. Well, thank you for joining me.